I'd like to call to order the October 15th meeting of the Corte Madera Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Would you join me to salute to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item is minutes from the August 20th meeting. Are there any changes or questions or comments on the meeting minutes?
Well, I guess I'm supposed to say that while I was disenfranchised electronically, I was at the meeting and I was at, but could not respond. So the meeting minutes should reflect that I was in attendance. That's all.
Okay. We'll make a note to add that to the meeting notes.
Just a question, Bob.
Yeah.
The minutes are really, you have to rely on the YouTube video to get specifics. Is that going to be the nature of minutes now that we're?
Yeah, we changed, the town changed their policy on minutes, and we're just doing action minutes now, they're called, which just reflect the actions that were taking place, because we do record and post all the meetings, and the assumption is that if people want to see, discussion or get more information, they can go back and see it. And it's also, quite frankly, less expensive to transcribe the minutes that way. Are there any changes or addition to the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, we're going to have open time for public regarding non-agenda items. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak right now? RJ, you see anybody or?
I see two hands raised.
Two hands up. Let's Cindy Winters, please. Go ahead, Cindy.
Okay. The Metropolitan Transportation Commission is starting to work on their EIR for its 2050 plan. State law requires that they reduce their greenhouse gas emissions by 19% in the next 15 years, and they're finding it a hard go. Their solution is threefold: better transit, more walking and biking, and more telecommuting. The 2050 goal for walking and biking is 10,000 miles of new paths. I'm assured by Derek McGill, TAM's planning director, that MTC funds will be available for Marin's ambitious new project of improving 12 intersections at US 101 for all users, including our active transporters. So that should include Tamalpais Drive, definitely. That's the good news. About telecommuting, statistics show that when people stop driving to the office, they drive more closer to home during the day. When driving is spread out over time, streets are less crowded and speeding increases. I've seen that in Larkspur on Doherty. At the same time, the number of cyclists has grown nationwide by 12%. And I've seen probably at least that many new cyclists in Central Marin. Clearly, this situation needs attendance. I know that Cheryl is also aware and concerned. End of comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Looks like Patty Stolier also has her hand raised.
Good evening. For age-friendly Corte Madera, I wanted to just say that I've attended a couple Zoom conferences on walkability and seniors, And at one of them, they proposed the value of doing a walk audit. So I've spoken with Cheryl and the Women's Club to try to get started on doing a walk audit, possibly using the ARP materials to do their kit. But then we'll have some data to present on increasing the safety for older adults. If you have any questions, speak now. Thank you.
Okay, Patty, thank you. I don't, oh, and David Bell, looks like you have your hand raised too. I'm gonna, you can start talking.
Yes, thanks. Just want the committee to note I submitted by email today some comment about the path between Echo and San Clemente for the committee's consideration. Was that received?
Yes, it was received and everybody got copies and we saw it.
And that's all I have to say at this time.
Okay. Thank you, David.
Should I read that email out loud, Bob?
Yeah, we should read that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so an email received and just referenced from David Bell today, Thursday, October 15th at 4:45 p.m. And it quotes, "The BPAC is encouraged to consider improvements to the gravel path between the north end of Echo Avenue and the bike path along San Clemente. While functional, this path would benefit from improvements such as grading or a more resilient surface. This approximate 150-yard path is heavily used by pedestrians and cyclists. Many youth use it going to and from school to probably avoid the Paradise Curve and intersection with San Clemente. Currently, there is a small opening at the Echo Ave cul-de-sac. Cyclists must leave the street via a residential driveway ramp, then ride on the sidewalk. A cable currently blocks entry except for a small opening. The path will be flooded rain, and there's a drainage culvert nearby. I encourage and remind BPAC to visit the area and initiate a review for improvements. David Bell, 33 Echo Ave."
Okay, thank you, Jared. Okay, I don't see anyone else with a hand raised for public comment, so we're going to close open time and we're going to move on to committee member reports. Are there any members of the committee who have something to report this evening?
Bob,
Yes.
just quickly, I listened to a webinar on making streets safer for pedestrians, and one of the speakers was Angie Schmidt, who's author of a book called Right of Way. And it was very interesting. She noted how pedestrian safety in the United States is always, or vehicle safety in the United States is always focused on the drivers and the passengers and not on pedestrians. And our fatality rate is going up, where here in the United States and Europe, it hasn't gone up like that. And anyway, I can give people the link to the webinar. It was very interesting. And she pointed out how trucks are getting taller and people can't see over them. So children in particular are at risk, and people are getting hit in the chest instead of in their legs and getting internal organs. So that's why actually that could be one reason why fatalities are higher. So car design is a factor. Anyway, I will share the webinar link if people want it.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl. Any other committee member reports? Mark?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on Cindy's comments regarding the MTC. The Policy Council on which I serve started listening as a preliminary to the so-called 2050 plan. And among other things, the subject of, as you would expect, motorized bicycles, electric bicycles came up. And I will say this, that it is really incumbent upon, I guess, state legislators, because it needs to be a formal regulation or law, that riding an electric bicycle is really the functional equivalent of riding a motorcycle. So all the rules and regulations that the state places on motorcycle riders, namely helmets and running lights in the day as well as night, really ought to be the same for electric bikes.
Thank you. Any other committee member reports? Okay, hearing none, we will then move on to our discussion items. 6A, past 3-foot minimum signs.
Chair
Jane,
Ravazio,
Jared?
if I may,
Yes,
Chair Ravazio, if I may, we have David Parisi joining us for an item, and I would like to move that forward if we can. He's here to
Sure.
discuss the Slurry Seal project and some striping on Corte Madera and Madera Boulevard.
so you'd like to move item 7A.
7A, please. Correct.
Okay, so then let's move ahead to 7A because we have David Parisi here. So we're going to talk about the Slurry Seal project. Is that okay with everybody on the committee?
Sure.
Okay. Let's roll. Go ahead.
All right.
So today our update is really to talk about opportunities in the striping part of the Slurry project. And so we discussed last time at our BPAC meeting, and you know, about 20% of our road network will receive Slurry Seal in the next month. And in particular, we saw opportunities on Madera Boulevard and Corte Madera Avenue. And that was, you know, definitely also based on feedback we received here at our last meeting. And so we've had a chance to look into it further and want to discuss those in more detail.
Okay.
All right. I'll jump into Madera Boulevard, which is what David Parisi will be assisting with here. So this was brought up at the last BPAC meeting as potential for improvements with regards to striping if we can loop it into our current Slurry Seal endeavor or micro project that's going off. And we think this is a great opportunity to include this street as a micro seal street in our micro Slurry Seal project that's about to hit and go. And Parisi has been instrumental on a quick time frame to assist with identifying some real good enhancements for this little section here between what you're looking at in the upper left, Madera Council Crest intersection, all the way to Tamalpais for that section along Madera. So I'll just touch on real high level. We're looking at a class 2, buffered class 2.
Are people able to see, or do we want Jared to try to zoom in a little bit? How's the size of the screen and text?
That's better.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, RJ.
Better. Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, you can see here in this little zoomed in version, the buffered class 2 as it's approaching the Council Crest intersection, and then transitioning into Tamil Vista, which you may recall was just recently done with class 2s. So we see a lot of opportunity for improvement at this intersection here, and then moving down and through all the way down to Tamalpais. And I'm going to try to jump over because I'm going to give David Parisi a minute to kind of explain his work here. But going down to Tamalpais, there's been quite a bit of improvements for the cycling facilities over here that we're pretty excited about. So with that, I'd like to pass the mic to David to explain some of this if he is able.
I am able to. Good evening, BPAC members. David Parisi here. What you're looking at is National Engineering striping diagram. That's why it has all these call outs. Those are all details and measurements for a contractor. Essentially what we did is we took some measurements of the street, and when the town asked me to look at this, I was going, oh my gosh, there's quite a bit of opportunities which I wasn't even aware of, to be honest, but it was the town's idea to do a buffer bike lane. And lo and behold, in the northbound direction, that is totally possible. And we are showing, for the most part, a 6-foot bike lane. It narrows down to 5 feet in one spot near the new pedestrian buffers. or refuge islands, with a 3-foot buffer the entire way. So all the way from Tamalpais to Madera Council Crest, it'll be a continuous bikeway with some green blocks at some conflict areas by the 76 station and the right turn going into town center. And then moving all the way to the north, you know, at the intersection up there at Madera Boulevard and Council Crest, we found an opportunity to slow down that right turn a bit to the highway without affecting congestion. And the intent there is to not make it such a sweeping free right turn, but to provide some awareness between the cyclists and the motorists. Also, the traffic lanes are going to be reduced anywhere down to almost 10 feet in some areas along this street. In the southbound direction, we don't have as much right of way, and there's some tight points at a couple places along the street. We do have enough room to get a 10-foot traffic lane in with a 5-foot bike lane. And there's also a 1-foot offset from the median island. That shouldn't, I'm not concerned about that at all, because that's what we're seeing now on Tamil Vista Boulevard. Those are 5-foot bike lanes and a 10-foot traffic lane, and it seems to be working pretty well. And that could be continuous also all the way from Madera Boulevard down to Tamalpais Drive. And on the bottom of this sheet, as Jared was pointing out, we also determined there's enough room to get what's called a bike box in at the intersection. And Jared can put the hand on that real quick. There, we have 40 feet here, which is plenty of room to retain the traffic lanes that are out there today, but also slide in a bike lane and then a bike box right at the end of the lane where cyclists, when it's a red light, can queue up so they can take a left turn without getting sideswiped or broadsided by a vehicle going straight, or they can go straight across. And this is a neat opportunity to improve bike safety as well at this location without affecting traffic operations. And there'll be some green blocks leading into what we call a streaming bike lane that goes into the bike box. Probably the most recent one of these that we've seen implemented was on Camino Alto at East Blightdale. That's only 36 feet wide between curbs. Things are pretty tight there, but it works. We have 4 extra feet here between the curbs. So it's more than generous to provide this type of facility. So I'll stop there. There's other features on the street: continental crosswalks, stop bars, yield lines. We're right now looking at upgrading some of the signage as well. But at the end of the day, compared to just a few months ago, we could have continuous bikeways all the way from Tamalpais down to Pfeiffer. In both
David,
directions.
can you touch on just the right turn pocket that we thought would be better to have the dash green instead of that right turn pocket based on, I assume, volumes?
Right here? Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. We all get used to things, but you know, this is actually a minor driveway for right turns into the shopping center compared to the next one down. And it's interesting, this driveway has fewer right turns than the one to the north, but it has its own right turn lane. The one to the north has much heavier right turns. It actually has 2 lanes going in, but it doesn't have a right turn lane. So just looking at traffic operations and how traffic queues dissipate, we felt the best design here would be to eliminate the exclusive right turn lane and provide green blocks. Right turns will go through the green blocks and make the turn into the shopping center. So this is it's a safety function. Again, we don't see any effects on traffic operations at all occurring here compared to current conditions. I think it'll be a safer condition, like I said, because we don't want to eliminate that bike lane for a right turn lane also.
Okay. Is there more? You guys, is that end of the report then?
So that includes
I'm good.
our presentation for Madera Boulevard.
Okay, great. Let's open up to questions first from BPAC.
David, can you explain the specifics? I think you mentioned trying to slow down the right turn from Madera northbound to eastbound. Can you explain the specifics of what is planned there?
Yeah, you can see, Cheryl, it's a pretty sweeping right turn, and you go into your own traffic lane, right? There's two eastbound lanes on Madera, on that 500-foot long segment of Madera. So motorists, there's been a collision there in the past with a pedestrian. What our intent is, especially for promoting cycling through here, is just to provide more awareness of slowing down that right turn. Just so, you know, there's a lot better sight distance between the users, the motorist, and the cyclist, and they're not going super fast, and they're paying more attention. By the way, at this location and southbound approaching Tamalpais, we're going to install some signs that right turn yield to bikes, which will also have the green line on it, so drivers know that it's a regulatory sign, something they need to do. Okay. By the way, that right turn is the only movement at this whole four-legged intersection that is not stop sign controlled.
Any more questions from BPAC members?
And someone educate me as to whether or not micro seal, chip seal, and slurry seal are different, or are they all the same thing?
I think that's my area here. They're all different, and I think moving forward, we're probably just gonna keep it simple and call it slurry seal. A micro surface is a slightly more modified version of slurry seal. It has more additives, and therefore it's a little more viscous, a little bit thicker, but it's very similar. So it's kind of the deluxe version of a slurry seal. A chip seal is different. You end up, if I could explain it in a simple way, it'd be like taking a slurry seal and kind of putting Tic Tac size rocks on top of it after. And then, so that's more common in, you know, more rural areas. You know, you'd see it a lot in West Marin and whatnot. And then, sorry, what was the third treatment you were asking about? Was it just those?
You hit all three, micro, chip.
Okay, great. Yeah, and then, yeah, not to complicate it further, sometimes they will take a chip seal and do a slurry on top of that so that you have, you don't have that abrasive surface, and they call that a cape seal.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions from BPAC members?
I have a question. Are these projects going to be financed through capital improvements budget or grants or? How?
Yeah, so we had always intended for Madera Boulevard to be part of the slurry project that went to council. There was an error on the quantity, so that was omitted by accident. We'll be going back on Tuesday, the council meeting, to bring that back, and then also bring an item to consider adding Redwood Highway as well, given the favorable unit prices we received on the recent slurry job. But all in all, even with the added roads and bringing back Madera Boulevard, the sum of those costs are still less than our original budgeted item from our July budget. So we had set aside about $1 million, and even if council does approve that come next Tuesday, we'll still be well under that number. And that is from the capital budget.
And the second part of that question is the hotel is planning a new project for renovation, and in its first iteration there was plans for a elliptical roundabout on eastbound Madera, and also I think it was in conjunction with the possible roundabout there at Council Crest, Madera, Tamil Vista. So I'm wondering if this slurry seal project, how it might impact any of the prospects for those bigger improvements. Is it likely that, well, no one knows the future, I understand, but given an outlay of funds at this point for slurry seal, will there be less likely that any major changes would be made in the future with the hotel?
So we considered, so as you all know, there was a discussion about a possible roundabout here, and we've tabled that. We don't have a timetable of when that might be considered in the future, but as you know, we had the project to the north, starting on the north side of the Council Crest intersection that was a full pavement surface. So obviously a more, a larger investment for pavement as opposed to slurry. And we made the conscious decision to slurry the intersection so that there was less investment in the intersection itself to allow for, a little more flexibility and conversation in the future about whatever makes sense. So I don't see the investment of a slurry seal and some striping modification being so cost prohibitive as far as a prior investment to inhibit whatever makes sense as part of a community project.
Thank you, OJ. I have one more question. I don't want to monopolize conversation, but
All right, go ahead.
you probably know this is like 4 doors down from my house, so I'm very familiar. David, was there any consideration to trying to slow traffic? It's westbound Madera going to northbound Tamil Vista. I think it has the same problem as the right turn we were talking about. This is people get off the freeway and make a sweeping right turn onto Tamil Vista without slowing down. So.
Yeah, I'm aware of that behavior. Unfortunately, I think the slurry seal limit is just past that crosswalk. So at this time, we don't have any ability to really do much, on that part of Madera Boulevard and that right turn.
Okay.
You can see those dashes. That's where the street will be repaved as the limits.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's really dictated by the location of that curb ramp. As you can see, you can't put a stop bar on the wrong side of a curb ramp landing. Otherwise, you're creating a conflict zone.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions from BPAC members? Okay, then we'll open it up to the public. Is there any member of the public who would wishes to comment on this particular topic? We're talking about the slurry seal project. Looks like Cindy Winder.
I have just one quick comment. Thank you, Bob. I want to compliment you all on the Tamalpais, or rather the Tamil Vista Drive improvements. That's a huge improvement. And it's a lot more pleasant to ride along that road now. So thank you again. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comment on this topic? Okay, then I'll bring it back to the BPAC for any further discussion, comments, questions. Anybody?
The only comment that I have is I just find it remarkable how nimble, if that's the right word, Public Works, and then of course, Parisi associates responding. I mean, this is just, is going to make a big difference. And I'm just happy that people have the insight and the ability to work that quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Yeah, you're right. This is going to be a huge improvement on a really heavily traveled piece of roadway for bikers. So I think it's great. Okay. Then I guess we can close this item.
We have one more. We have Corte
one more
Madera
for
to
David?
discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also with David. Okay.
So at the last BPAC, there was a discussion about taking a close look at Corte Madera Avenue, and that perhaps when it was last paved, there was a missed opportunity.
That's my
and
home.
So,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
but that's my home. I just looked down and I realized I'm looking at my roof.
Great. So we did, we as part of our slurry job, we have our contractor do what we call a striping inventory, which is a a detailed measurement of lane widths and shoulders and all those things. We've taken a close look, and David has really spearheaded this for us. And it varies quite a bit. So it wasn't as if there was a standard, 12 or 13 foot lane that went in the southbound direction, but really it varies anywhere from just under 10 to all the way up to, I believe, 14 in some spots. But the long and the short is there's opportunities. It's just going to be a little bit more of a customized improvement. And I think David can speak to that best. So go ahead, David.
Sure, yeah. So a couple of years ago, I worked on the Camino Alto part in Mill Valley from Blythedale up to the top of the hill. And that was quote unquote customized as well, as RJ mentions. We were out in the field, we were taking lots of the measurements, we barely squeaked in for most of the way an uphill bike lane. That road is wider, than Corte Madera Avenue. But RJ's asked me to take a look at this too. And we have more work to do. Generally what we are seeing though is that edge line for northbound traffic on the right side, the white line, that's pretty much going to have to stay where it's at. It's pretty smooth. There isn't any wiggle room outside of it. So for the most part, we're going to be retaining that line. What we're doing next, it's kind of a logic kind of exercise, is taking a look at that northbound traffic lane and seeing how wide it is. Is it too, quote unquote, possibly too wide in some areas, particularly in some of the tangents, which are the straight sections. And then in any of the corners, is there any room to move the center line in the direction, to the east? We'll see if there is. There's a few spots that look like has a little bit of promise, but to be honest, we're probably talking about inches for the most part for the northbound traffic lane. Then we're moving into the southbound lane. And we know this is a good image right here. We got a place where there's this lanes. I don't know if that's David, that's your house on the left. All right. For your house, you got a 9-foot 9-inch lane. That's pretty narrow, especially coming out of a curve. I don't know what we're gonna be able to do there, but then you come around the corner, you hit 12.8, right? So we're looking at what are called auto turns. We have sophisticated software. We can take vehicles through turns and whatnot. And we're trying to see, okay, well, maybe we can start narrowing things up after that 9.9, through that 11.9, through that 12.8, just to try to push the white edge line over a little bit more, right? Every bit helps, because we all know it's a drag as a cyclist or even as a motorist come around a corner and oh my gosh, there's a bike in the lane, right? We want to be able to provide some bailout and some safety and places where maybe folks could ride and feel a little bit safer. So that's what we're doing. We have to do it curve by curve and see what we can make work. No huge promises here. And what we come up with on a plan, and again, these dimensions here are from the contractor, which are super helpful. We'll amend these with our kind of wish list of dimensions, and then I'll have to put them out in the field and see if it works. We'll have to smooth things out a little bit because we just want to make sure all our curves are smooth and there's no, quick transitions. But I'm with you guys. We're going to try to get something, try to get as much as we can that's practical in a balanced situation out here and move that line over. We're never going to get, unless we widen the road, an uphill, a bona fide bike lane. But we'll see what we can do. And I'm happy to hear any input from folks. But I'm pretty aware of this road, and we have more work to do over the next week on it.
Okay, is that it?
Yeah.
Thank you, David. First off, are there any questions from BPAC members about this?
So David, I have referred to this as asymmetrical striping, and I don't know if that word is correct. I remember that word coming up when Camino Alto was in front of Mill Valley to get a wider uphill lane. Is that accurate? If you're pushing the yellow line is not down the absolute center of the road, if it's closer to the northbound fog line, is it correct to call it asymmetrical striping?
I've never heard that term, but I'll accept it. It sounds logical.
Okay. And is that sort of the baseline? We know that the northbound fog line, there's just no room. I mean, it's right up against a curb, and you know, there's no room to
Right.
fudge that one. That's fixed.
Right.
Then do you use that to come over and set your center line? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, a little bit of that. Again, we're going to take a look at the current dimensions and then also look at the curves and understand how vehicles track through those curves, right? Because the really tight ones, when you have a tight dimension or a narrow road at the same time, they may track over a center line, right? Or an edge line. So we're taking that into account. But we're also taking into account what the existing dimensions are there now, and does it quote unquote work? Is it, you know, so it's an iterative effort for sure, Dave.
And if I could elaborate on that, just the process itself tends to smooth out the lines. So
Yeah.
you would, you know, you might mark the 3 lines there every, say, 100 feet, and then you come through with what they call cat tracking, which is a piece of equipment that does a real very slight line, but you're on a machine that has wheels that's propelled, and so they're kind of, there's not these jagged angle points. It tends to kind of create that initial curve, and then you know, town staff and Dave and his team will then see how vehicles are tracking with respect to those kind of draft lines.
Yeah.
And we'll make adjustments, and then you put in the final line.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I think what's going to be really important, just as a user of this facility, both as a cyclist and a driver, is, you know, southbound on inside curves, right? That's where, think about it as a cyclist or as a motorist, you know, you come upon each other pretty quickly, right? So I think that's going to be a big focus, and then connecting in between.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from BPAC members? Okay, then we will open it up to the public, and looks like we have Cindy Winter. Cindy?
Forgot to lower my hand for my last comment, so
Oh,
I have
okay.
a specific comment here. It looks complicated, and I'm hoping that everything works out as it should. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have Janet Furman. Janet, if you'd like to speak.
Yes, hi. I commend you all for wanting to make Corte Madera Avenue wider and safer for cyclists. But I also like everyone to keep in mind that the cyclists who really know their way around Marin County don't necessarily ride on Corte Madera Avenue because it's so dangerous. They ride on Chapman. It's just a lot quieter and a lot safer. The people who ride on Corte Madera Avenue are the ones who don't know that Chapman is a better alternative. So what I think makes a lot of sense would be to encourage cyclists to use Chapman instead, which happens to be my own street. I'm happy to share it with cyclists. It's wide, it's got a smooth pavement. Make it, what do you call it, a sharrow? Put the share symbol on it, make some signage that designates Chapman as the main southbound uphill route to get from Corte Madera to Mill Valley. I mean, let's do what we can with Corte Madera Avenue, but let's take advantage of Chapman being a better alternative for most cyclists. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Janet. I don't see any other public comment, so we will bring it back to the BPAC for comments for David Parisi or our town staff on this.
So Up above,
David?
sorry,
Yeah, David, you have something?
yes, if I can.
Sure.
Up above the 500 block, which is where the homes cease, and you've got the Marin County open space. There are a number of unpaved pullouts where cars park if they're going to go for a hike. And I'm just wondering if it would be possible as part of this slurry seal project to grade and put in some asphalt in some of those pullouts, because then that would give a natural place where a cyclist is on the right side of the southbound fog line, and they would have pavement to pull over and allow cars to pass. You know, I know there's not but 10 days or so between now and the slurry seal going down, but I toss that out as another option for allowing cars to overtake cyclists.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can field that one or wait for the others.
Why don't we just go through all the comments and then
Okay.
I'll let you.
Sounds good.
Okay.
And then the second one, I raised this at the last BPAC, and when this job was done 4 years ago, approximately, Coastline Engineering did a really good job of laying out where the southbound fog line would go. And as I recall, the CAT tracker did a good job of laying it down. Whoever ran the CAT track was probably not the same person who did the thermoplastic striping off of the fog line. And so when the fog line went down on the south, the driver did not follow the CAT tracks. He followed what made sense to him, which was to sort of go as far to the right as possible to create, you know, a nice wide motor vehicle lane. So I bring that up once again, only so that all of this work that's being put into this is communicated as clearly as possible to the guys who are actually out in the field doing this work, so that they have it in their mind that they're actually doing something different and unusual to create as much room for cyclists as possible.
Okay. Thank you, David. Are there any other comments from BPAC? Okay. RJ, did you have a final?
Yeah, just real quick.
response here?
You know, we can further discuss any benefits of paved pullouts. I think in either scenario, it probably would be a separate project at this point. So just from a essence of trying to shoehorn it in, I think we just have a more thorough dialogue, and if it makes sense later, then we do it anyway as a separate project. I think it'd be a separate project now. And then as far as CAT tracking, yeah, we'll definitely be on them. And I'm not saying that hasn't happened where someone painted away from the CAT track. That hasn't happened under my watch, so I'll make sure that stays that way.
Okay. Thank you, RJ. I think, is that it for David then, RJ?
That's it. He may, David, you mind saying just for a little bit on the past 3 feet item, and then we'll let him go.
Sure.
Okay. Let's move to item 6A. Again, we'll go back in the agenda to where we were before. The past 3-foot minimum sign. RJ and Jared, I think this goes to you.
Yeah, I was going to start off and just, so I know there was a comment that there had been some prior thought or possibly some locations discussed with BPAC many years ago with prior staff. We weren't able to find that, and I just thought it was just a good opportunity just to revisit what guidance there is, which you know, I'll be frank, there isn't an official guidance by MUTCD. What you're seeing on the screen really is the extent of the guidance. It's in the form of a question answer and an answer provided by MUTCD. So that's here, and Jared, you want to highlight all or relevant portions that kind of make sense for us to all discuss?
Yeah, so it's a PowerPoint. I think highlight. I can point at it. It's really in red here, and I think that as you said, RJ, it kind of drives home just the nature of the conversation. There's there's a lot of guidance or kind of thoughts that provoke around the usage and the need and the locations and the appropriateness of these signs. But right here in red, I'm going to read it. It's kind of important to be verbatim with this. So special word message signs for the 3-foot law should not be installed haphazardly and should be limited to locations where the operation of the 2 vehicle types is demonstrating a problem or crash history. Thus, installing these signs where, say, physically separated bikeway exists would be counterproductive to achieving the agency's goal. This kind of really speaks to just being diligent about the location. The message that this sign gives is it's a reminder message. The past 3 feet minutes, it is the law. It's not a specific requirement at the sign location. So we want to be cognizant of the use of these signs and for their intended purpose as more of that education, if you will. And also at the same rate, we need to be cognizant not to put them up where they're not absolutely necessary or too often. So that's just a quick little thought that's provoked. We still have a lot of homework on our end, really, to dive into these, the usage and the need. But I'll let RJ kind of.
Yeah, so I took away, it's not, the idea isn't just to, you can do no wrong, throw them up wherever you think it makes sense. I think it's actually, we should only use them where there's a reason to use them. And so I want to see if David has anything to add, but what I would suggest as far as homework for Public Works would be taking a look at starting with arterials and collectors roads and looking at those and looking at crash history and giving consideration to this 2 vehicle types. So when we hear 2 vehicle types, I'm hearing, that could be a bike versus a car. And then coming back to VPAC at a future meeting with a little more specific locations that we think should be considered. David, is there anything you think we missed here that's worth discussing?
No, I think you guys nailed it. I mean, we do hear a lot in my profession of, folks asking for these. You be careful, especially when there's double yellow lines and things like that, and it gets confusing to motorists what to do. So I think taking a methodical approach, RJ, makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Is that the staff report then?
Can I ask a
That's it.
question?
I'm just trying to figure out if staff's done first.
That's the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, great. So then, let's go to BPAC for questions first. Cheryl?
I'm wondering if the same rationale would hold for signage that says, I think it says something like bicycle entitled to full lane or bicycle entitled to the lane. Is the same rationale hold for that? Because again, I think it's not specific to a location.
I'm more accustomed to using share the road. And those I actually would use in a specific location, where you're expecting, there's not a lot of area for bicyclists to not be in the lane, but perhaps, bicyclists or drivers assume they would be. So I would also use those ones, on a specific location.
Okay. Is that good, Cheryl? Any other questions from BPAC members? Okay, then we will open it up to the public for comments on this. Looks like we have Bjorn Griepenberg. Bjorn, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, great.
Hey, everyone. Bjorn Griepenberg, Policy and Planning Director at Marin County Bicycle Coalition. I've been hiding out here and have really enjoyed seeing everything that's going on in Corte Madera. Great work to all involved. Really nice to see what's happening with those previous 2 projects. Just to add a couple of thoughts on this is a really good and timely discussion to be having. I haven't seen many urban applications of this sign, the past 3-foot minimum sign. I have, however, seen it applied in more rural contexts, and I can tell you up in Sonoma County, what they've done is they've actually placed this sign basically at every intersection of a popular rural bike route. So if you're turning onto what is a popular bike route up in Sonoma County, you will see this sign at least once. And so I think that's been helpful, kind of thinking about the entrances to different bike routes where this signage might be needed. That's one approach I've seen. And then because it came up, the bikes may use full lane signage. I have to say, from everything I've heard, at least from our members, that signage is much more effective and better at communicating cyclists right to the road, especially in places where they do really need to take the lane for their own safety. I think Share the Road at this point has, unfortunately, maybe just, I think people don't really see it or know what it means anymore. And so bikes may use full lane, at least from a cyclist perspective, reinforces your right to be somewhere where you should be for your own safety. But again, thank you for talking about this and taking it up.
Thank you, Bjorn. Any other, I don't see any other hands raised. I have one public comment that was submitted that I am supposed to read. It is from Kirby Bartlett, who is a BPAC member but could not be here this evening. So I'm going to read his comment that he submitted earlier today, and it's also part of the record for this meeting. First of all, let me be clear about a few things. I like this law. Drivers should always give at least 3 feet of clearance when passing a bike. I'm very much in support of spreading the word about this 3-foot law. With that said, I have 3 points. 1, public education. Let's be clear about what this sign really is. Public education. It informs the general public about a law that is applicable on all of the roads in California. Unlike nearly all other road signs, this 3-foot message is not location specific. For example, a no U-turn sign is location specific because it informs drivers that they cannot make a U-turn at that specific location. Location-specific parameters apply for nearly all of the road signs. For example, stop, yield, merge, pedestrian crossing, right turn only. In contrast, the 3-foot law applies to all locations on all roads. In short, a permanent sign about the 3-foot law is essentially about educating the public. Why the 3-foot law versus another good law? As I said earlier, I like this 3-foot law. It's on my list of good laws. Also on my list of good laws, no texting while driving, no drinking and driving, Corte Madera social horse ordinance. It's a long list, and I don't think it's practical to have a permanent sign for each one. So why are we selecting the 3-foot law for a permanent sign? From personal observation, the texting while driving thing scares me the most. I also acknowledge that Corte Madera social host ordinance isn't about driving, but this permanent sign is for public education, so why limit our scope to just driving issues? In addition, if BPAC is a permanent sign, will other Corte Madera committees want to get a sign as well? So ask yourself, is this 3-foot law the single best law to post on a permanent sign for public education purposes? Other less permanent options. Instead of a permanent sign that focuses us to debate the merits of one good law over another, I suggest we consider less permanent public education options like the following. Posting on Nextdoor, posting in weekly Corte Madera Chamber Chronicles, posting in school newsletters, street banners that hang from street lights, street banner across Tamalpais Drive, message on reader board at the Corte Madera Rec Center, posting in local newspapers, advertising space on the outside of local buses. This would allow us to rotate the messages being delivered, so maybe we could include that no texting while driving law once in a while. Thank you, Kirby Bartlett. And that was Kirby's comment. I don't see any other members of the public with their hands raised. So we're going to close public comment and we will bring it back to the BPAC for comments or discussion on this. Is there anyone who wants to comment on this? Nobody?
My only comment is that Kirby's comment was brilliant. I mean, you really hit on thinking deeper about this and not just having a knee-jerk reaction to putting up a sign because we want we want motor vehicles to give us more space. So I don't know if it's the right time, but I think we should put this on the agenda along with the bike may take full lane as a topic to discuss at the next BPAC.
Okay, we can consider that. Are there any other comments from the BPAC on this? I will just add one. I think this is a great idea and we should do this as often as possible because I was struck by a car 2.5 years ago who had violated this law and was cited for it on a road that was moving very, very fast. So I think this is a great idea. And as far as I'm concerned, we can't have too many of them. So thank you for working on this and I appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to item 6B, Paradise Drive Corridor, San Clemente to Robin Drive. RJ and Jared, back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Bob. So yeah, this was a request at the last BPAC meeting to include and speak about for upcoming agenda. So here we are. This is Paradise Drive corridor from San Clemente all the way down to Robin Drive. And the color coding here, I'm going to speak to the corridor from west moving east. So in blue, we have a project, the sidewalk widening project. I'm going to dive into each one of these colored boxes in a follow-up slide. So I'll just touch on it real quickly, all 4 of them here. It's a widening project for the sidewalk on the north side of Paradise Drive in the blue highlighted section. And that would have a second phase, which would be repaving Paradise Drive in that section as well. Construction estimated late next year. Going to the green section between Seawolf and Prince Royal, we're looking at so just some early concepts for this section here to add a multi-use path or some bike facility. Just still trying to brainstorm ideas for that, and we hope to jump into a design next year or the following year. The orange, just wanted to highlight this part as an existing class 1 path. I'm sure all of you are aware of this. It's kind of pertinent in the conversation of connecting the San Clemente path here with the extent of Corte Madera, the town limits. So we do have this class 1 path. It's in great shape, and actually as part of the micro project that's coming in, it's going to get a new little micro slurry seal coating coming up. And then the last segment here, which is probably the biggest volume-wise effort in this corridor, is the Paradise Complete Streets. We're still in the conceptual phase. We hope to initiate design this year, this current fiscal year. But some of the attributes that this project presents is a class 2 each way, multi-use path on the south side of Paradise Drive. Some improvements to ped crossings, and recently added is the concept of adjusting this project for future sea level rise and being in front of that discussion. So we're going to take a look here on that first one from San Clemente to Seawolf. Right here, you're looking somewhere in the middle of that segment, just a generic cross section here. To explain what is happening with this project, taking this existing narrow, heavily traveled sidewalk that's through here and expanding it to a real wide 8 feet to allow for multiple different uses in that area. It's important because that is connecting the Bay Trail path just to the north on San Clemente Drive, and so. This is a heavy... this was generated as a kind of a safe routes project, and we did receive I want to say $600,000 in grant funds to construct that. So we're on schedule. That's going to happen this summer. Sidewalk currently is about 4 foot in most places, and the goal is to get it 8 feet in the final condition. And then as part of that, we're modifying some of the lane widths, some of the shoulders,
slight modifications on the medians to accommodate that. And then also, as we go through there, the cross slope of the roadway is pretty severe. We're trying to improve that where we can. So that's the primary goals of that sidewalk widening project.
Yeah, and then the next section between Seawolf and Prince Royal, like I said, we're just looking at concepts at this point. It's a pretty short section, but right now is non-existent for bike lanes. It has a narrow sidewalk on the south side. You can see that in this photo on the bottom left. You probably have to squint, but it's there. And part of this project would be looking at, do we widen the south sidewalk as a multi-use path? Do we put that multi-use path on the north side of Paradise Drive? Because there's arguments for either one of those. The current project for the northern widened sidewalk lends some merit to considering this to be widened. The south side tees up nicely with the extension of the Class 1 path beyond Prince Royal. And then also to keep in mind another option of buffered Class 2 bike lanes in each way. So still in the—
So kind of what we're looking for a little bit of feedback. We're still in what I would consider the scoping phase. This isn't officially in our work plan, but it would be the last piece of this stretch that isn't in our work plan. And so it makes sense to try to build it into our work plan in the near future. And yeah, so the main question would be transition to something like buffered Class 2s when you have a widened sidewalk to the west and a Class 1 facility on the south side to the east, or you can extend more of those widened facilities on one side or the other. At a very preliminary look, I could see some merit to putting that widened sidewalk or multi-use path on the south side, and partly because of that photo you can see at the bottom left. That's on the corner of El Camino Drive and Paradise. That's a heavily used bus stop for children. And right now you can see some large hedges. And so by widening that, I see more of a increased volume for kids to wait, improve sight distance, and then it would then also connect well with the Class 1 facility that starts at Prince Royal. So again, very preliminary, but those are just some initial thoughts. And so I want to get your suggestions at this early stage, and then also your concurrence that we should fold this into our work plan in the near future.
And then, yeah, thank you, RJ. The last bit that I will touch on for Paradise Drive corridor here is around the horn at Ring Mountain. So coming from the end of westward, swinging around and all the way through the school zone to the end of beyond Robin Drive to town limits, pretty much. You can see we're looking at Class 2s each way. Ped crossing improvements, I'll try to zoom in right here at Marin Montessori. Currently, we don't have rapid flashing beacons, so we're looking at putting those in as part of this. And Marin Montessori would be assisting with cost share for work directly in front of them. We have a private development happening over here off of Robin Drive that will be helping with the improvements right here at Robin Drive and Paradise Drive. And then a little hard to see, but the PED or multi-use path on the south side would run the whole corridor up to Ring Mountain. And yeah, so that touches on some of the multimodal improvements along here. And I'll let RJ touch on the cap and the sea level rise portion of it.
Sure. So this project has been around for some time and has evolved over the years. By the addition of the development and the school improvements, and then also as we've developed our climate adaptation plan, it really asked the question, if we're going to originally build a new roadway that has a 20+ year service life, which is great. And then once you factor in sea level rise, well, if we don't get the full service within that investment, then should we be factoring that in? And so at a staff level, we thought that was the right thing to do, and that's been echoed in our climate adaptation plan. And so we believe the design funds from TAM are still eligible to include that sea level rise component. And we just want to get your feedback on including that here. We still think we can get all of the same multimodal benefits that we would otherwise, even if we do raise the road. And we're at a time where we actually haven't done significant design work. This is just very high level line work, as you would plant, kind of a conceptual line work exhibit. And we'll be moving forward with a more thorough design, likely RFP for consultants to move forward, but would like to get any feedback one way or another on the sea level rise component and including that.
Okay, is that your presentation, gentlemen? Yes? Okay, are there any questions from BPAC first? Somebody have a question?
Yeah, I was trying to articulate it. Have you determined if any of the homes on Paradise encroach into the town's right of way?
We do have one right of way challenge on the widened sidewalk between San Clemente and Seawolf. We're working through that challenge right now. We've reached out to the property owners. Currently, this is about mid-span. Currently have an easement, a 4-foot easement that meanders away from the curb and gutter. And so if we kept that existing alignment and went to 8, we wouldn't technically have right of way. But we do have some options that would work within our right of way, and we're going to present those and see if they're amenable to those. So, but other than that, I'm not aware of other conflicts based on these high-level alternatives we presented.
My other question is whether you guys are aware of the path that goes to Tam Valley that was constructed above ground. It's kind of a boardwalk that goes from the Mill Valley Bike Path and takes cyclists and pedestrians into Tam Valley. And it's built, 2 or 3 feet off the ground to accommodate that area that floods there.
Are we talking the Tennessee Valley path?
Yeah, that's how I should have identified it, right? The Tennessee.
Yeah,
Valley.
no problem. Yeah, I was involved in that project. Yeah, boardwalk type treatment.
Okay, I'll make a comment about that when Bob opens it up for comments.
I had a question. Can you put the San Clemente to Seawolf slide? Yes, thank you. So you're going to widen the sidewalk. This is where we've had so many comments and issues with bikes, because there's kids using that for biking in the morning to try to get to school and on the path to school. So you said you're going to widen the sidewalk to 8 feet. Is that going to become a multi-use pathway, or are you going to keep bikes on the street, or have you not figured that part out yet?
It will be available for bikes. It will not technically be a class 1 or a multi-use path. I might call it a widened sidewalk, multi-use widened sidewalk or something closer to that.
So there'll be an entrance for bikes onto the sidewalk? Because I know in the morning, that's like really heavily used in the morning by kids biking to school when they start going to school again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've witnessed the many kids going, and I think it would be a great enhancement for them. And I think that's the primary goal of the project. And we'll have we'll take a closer look to make sure we're accommodating those ingress and egress points. We definitely have our accessible curb ramps, which provide that, but perhaps there's an opportunity to make them more accessible for bike users.
Okay, great. And then this is all in the planning phases and bidding phases right now, right?
This particular segment, we're submitting to Caltrans for permission to construct in summer. So yeah,
good.
we're on schedule, and everything, barring any unforeseens, is going to happen next summer.
Great, thank you. Any other questions from BPAC?
Bob, I have a question, please.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to ask, in terms of your calculations, what's the projected sea level rise, let's say to 2050? What are you using?
That's there's a number of factors, and I won't get into all the specifics, but you know, if you're thinking of it as a bathtub that's rising, and there's no wave effect and there's no storm effect and other things, the state is recommending account for 3.5 feet of sea level rise between now and 2050.
Okay, that's all I need.
Yeah, and at current king tide is right around 7.4 feet. So you're going to want to be in that, 11-foot range if you're following that 3.5-foot guidance.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just one additional question on below Harbor Drive going east. I think the sidewalk is not a straight line. It sort of meanders like a snake, right? You familiar with that? And my question is, conceptually, are you thinking about straightening the sidewalk so that it doesn't sort of meander, it's not in a wave pattern, but as a straight shot?
I'm not sure if you're talking about the curb face is meandering, or if it's the path pull. There's a section where the sidewalk actually pulls off of the curb and gutter, and then there's a somewhat of a snake. Is that the area you're talking to? Right there?
Just where your hand is pointing there.
Yeah, so that's the area where we have the right-of-way challenge that we're still working through. So that the current alternative that we have that would allow multi-directional facilities within our existing town right-of-way would be to have a split path. So you would essentially send cyclists that are moving toward the malls on the current meander, and then you would have cyclists going the other way on the inside closer to the road. So that's one that we believe we could leave and build within our town right-of-way, should the property owner not be interested in a separate idea, which would be the more conventional approach of just going to an 8-foot type sidewalk that is closer to the roadway.
Okay. Any further questions from BPAC? Okay, then we will open it up to the public. Looks like Cindy Winter has her hand up.
Thank you. I've always been fascinated by the westward intersection, and I didn't see that specifically on any of these diagrams, or maybe I didn't recognize what I was looking at. What I saw was a blank space between two of the segments, and I wondered whether westward, right there, I wondered whether any consideration is being given to westward when this planning is going on.
Okay.
Because my concern is that's a very wide intersection. It's unusually wide, and cars come down the hill, and if they're turning right, they're going at a pretty good clip. And when cars are approaching and turning right from the other direction, they're pumping the gas in order to get up the hill. So they're going pretty fast. And it has always been my concept that there would be several little pedestrian refuge islands there that would narrow the channels of the vehicular traffic and give pedestrians a perch in a pinch, so to speak, so that they could cross that intersection more safely. And I know those drawings that I made to the best of my ability are floating around somewhere, and it may be premature to send another copy of them, but I was just wondering if you were even thinking about westward.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. We will take the rest of public comment and we'll answer all the questions all at the same time, if that's okay. It looks like we have Bjorn.
Yes, hello again. I'm curious if this stretch, or I guess the stretch west of Prince Royal, has ever been considered for a road diet. My understanding is that you can accommodate up to about 20,000 vehicles a day with one lane in each direction and a center turn lane. And especially with, this conversation is really focusing on the challenges presented by having limited right of way. And I'm wondering if there's opportunity there by eliminating a travel lane in each direction on this stretch. I'll also say, I don't believe she's on the call, but I know if Maureen Gaffney were here representing the Bay Trail, that she would probably remind you all that their vision is for continuous multi-use pathway of a width that can accommodate both people on bike and foot. And I think she would probably express that for this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Bjorn. Okay, looks like David Bell. David? No? Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, you there?
Got me?
Yep.
Thank you. I just want to point out that this relates directly to my email address at the start of this meeting, that intersection is what kids are avoiding. And even though if this improvement proceeds, I hope it not dissuades your committee from looking at that pathway I recommended for you to look at. Kids will always be using this shortcut. And an improvement to that shortcut can be accomplished, I believe, in much shorter order than what this project will achieve. And even the construction project will cause delays. So I just hope, I'm imploring the committee to look at that short 150-yard pathway from Echo to San Clemente.
Okay. Thank you, David. Let's see, Jean Severinghouse. Are you there?
And thank you. This is great that you're thinking about looking at all of the segments at once. I definitely salute you on that. And it's great that you've got movement on the San Clemente to Seawolf part. That's something Safe Routes has been asking for, and it's high priority for them. I have thought about the red part, the westward to Robin, and a wish that that really be a wide multi-use path on the south side, because we have climate change and we have a need for more kids to go safely to school. And I know that some of my neighbors are both teachers and students at those schools out there, the Montessori and the, sorry, the name is escaping me, Marine Country Day, I guess. And so it's adults riding bikes with children, and there'll be people walking. And so I'd like to see at least the 8-foot multi-use paths. And I'm wondering who the class 2 bike lanes would be serving there, because it seems like if you have just a shoulder, that the bikers are pretty much people who are riding on a narrow 2-lane road with shoulders all the way around Paradise. So I don't think this gives us any more users. And I'd like to see this multi-use path be wide enough for both walking and biking both directions out all the way to the schools on the south side. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jean. I do not see any more hands up. Oh, wait, do I? Susie Beatty?
May I echo David Bell's contribution?
Cindy, I'm sorry, you had a chance to speak. Thanks. Susie Beatty, did you want to speak? Hello?
Hi, thank you, Bob. In that section from Seawolf East, when you're making the decision, I'm sure you've already taken this into consideration, but when you are deciding which side of the road to widen, that's exactly the spot, yeah. You of course want to take into consideration when kids are going back to Cove School, you've got a bunch of kids on the north side walking towards Cove School, and there would be need to cross the street depending on what you chose. I'm not caring really which side it is, but it's just to consider any kids that would have to walk back and forth because Cove School is on the north side. So, and I'd love the whole thing to be as wide as possible for everybody all the way along the whole length. It's just the more people can use it, both bikes and walkers and so forth, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Okay, I do not see any more hands up. So I'm going to bring it back to, no, I don't see any more. Okay, I'm going to bring it back to the BPAC for comments. Anybody want to talk here?
So 2 comments. When the Cove School opened, I was the parent representative for Safe Routes to School, and we were pretty successful in increasing the number of children riding bikes to and from the Cove. And they all use the north side. So that, you know, when you're weighing where to widen the sidewalk on the north or the south, I'd prefer to keep them on the north because that's where they come and go. If they're coming from Larkspur area, you know, they're going to come down San Clemente and stay on the north, and it would be problematic to have them crossing Paradise just to get down to the Cove and then having to cross again. And my second comment has to do with the section at Ring Mountain. That section of Paradise has a bit of a problem in that there's a pretty good sized ditch, you know, drainage canal in front of Ring Mountain. And over the years, I've just thought that would be a section that might be able to take advantage of the boardwalk that RJ was involved in Mill Valley that went to Tennessee Valley. So if it can be widened enough and sea rise can be accommodated, if there's enough right of way to do it on the surface of the road, that's great too, and probably less expensive. But I just wanted to toss out that seemed to be a solution for that unusual section in front of Ring Mountain.
Thank you, David. And I kind of jumped ahead there. I meant to go back to RJ and Jared. Did you have any responses or anything you wanted to say after public comment before I come back to the BCAP members?
Yeah, you know, I heard 2 questions and some other comments, but regarding the westward intersection, yeah, I've given that some thought. It's very, the curves there have been fanned out pretty wide, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to, you know, shorten that crossing width. And also, if you're coming down the hill from westward, because of that, the stop sign is so far back from Paradise Drive, and so there's an opportunity also to pull that forward to improve sight distance. So yeah, we'll definitely, the gaps in the image we're showing here by no means will actually be gaps. That was just kind of just for showing the various segments, but yeah, there's definitely some opportunities to improve that intersection. And then separately, I don't have a specific answer on the road diet, but we can take a look at the volumes and see if there's any merits to that.
Thank you, RJ. Okay, so then back to the BPAC. Are there any other BPAC members with comments on
Bob,
these particular items?
Bob, I'd like to just mention a couple of things.
Please go right ahead.
So just FYI, school is back in session at the Cove and at Neil Cummins, and traffic patterns are probably a little bit different because they're both schools are doing AM and PM sessions to cut down the class sizes. And then I'd also like to mention any opportunity for the curb ramps at the crosswalks and such are very helpful for these little kids on the bikes, because a lot of times the bikes are oversized or missized, and kids are negotiating bikes as it is. So anyway, just thought I'd mention that.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Tony. Any other BPAC members have any comments to make on this?
Yeah. Hey, Bob.
Yes, sir.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sorry, I've been on the line, but I just had to reboot my computer. I've been on so many Zoom calls today. I couldn't. I was like, hey, I got something to say. So anyway, I finally rebooted my computer, and I have one quick little comment. I mean, I second the idea of, is there a way that this stretch of road can go to one lane each direction? So I think that's the traffic diet thing. I would I've been thinking about that for years. And I happen to live in this area and ride it all the time. I'm just riding it tonight with my son. But I'd like to see if there is a way to do a traffic diet. If you think about what they did at Miller Avenue and things like that, I think there's a lot of opportunity between San Clemente, down to the schools as well. And the really little kids, probably middle school down, definitely use that north side sidewalk along, I guess, between Seawolf and San Clemente. So if that were widened, it would be great. I think all the bicycle traffic and all the vehicular traffic going both directions in front of Nugget Market and the neighborhoods there, it seems to me that a traffic diet of one lane each direction with the turn lanes that are there, and to give cyclists, whether they're little kids going to the Cove School, which my son did since it opened, to where now he's riding to Hall through this area every day, including today. They use that north side of the sidewalk on the opposite side of Nugget Market. So I think I'm glad this is being addressed, and I would love to see the traffic diet and even a reduction in speed limit from 30 to 25 or something like that would be great.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any other BPAC members wish to comment on this item?
Yeah, I have a quick comment. I agree with Mr. Bell that the Echo route is a really nice alternative. And right now, you have to go up on someone's driveway and then on the sidewalk, I think, for the length of one residence, because there is no ramp onto the gravel path that exists. But even if we could just get, and I think there's a cable that cuts across the path, so you have to approach it from the sidewalk. If we could just get access from the street, that would be a first step. And yeah, I think even with widening the sidewalk in that blue section, the Echo path would be a safer alternative. So I think we should consider that, and maybe an incremental improvement would help.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, thank you, RJ and Jared. Glad this is moving forward. Okay, next item on the agenda, Lucky Drive bike enhancements. RJ and Jared, back to you guys.
All right, thank you, Bob. So here we go. This will be nice and quick and a real easy one. We're just diving into this. It's Lucky Drive between Doherty and Pfeiffer. And and really we're looking at two kind of conceptual options here. What you see on your screen now is buffered class 2s in each direction. And this is, this is a heavily traveled corridor here for cyclists, peds, users going to and from the school. So there's quite a bit of use through here. And there's two kind of areas of consideration and concern for both of these options we're presenting. And it's each end of this right here at Doherty Drive, right in front of Redwood High School. There's a lot going on. You have users in the westbound, peds, cyclists, motorists coming to this intersection right here, the free right up here on a Doherty Drive. Cyclists may want to be accessing the High Canal path. It's a pretty heavily used path through here, getting across the road to a multi-use path here on Doherty. So a lot going on, and that's definitely something we want to be cognizant of when considering design options here. And the other end as well, cyclists more than likely are going to be wanting to continue straight through here to get to the 101 overcrossing, but obviously would have the option to be making their way over to Tamil Vista. But most motorists are making this right-hand turn here onto Pfeiffer. So with this heavy right-hand movement and the cyclist's inclination to be going straight, obvious location to study here. So the two ends really merit the most discussion and consideration, but this option presents buffered class 2. We have the right-of-way width to get that. So now looking at the other option that we've looked at so far, and this is a conceptual plan. We don't have this currently. So
this was we're still in kind of the scoping effort, and this came about as part of the Safe Routes Committee discussions, and so there was a little bit of funding thrown at it to look at what's possible, and what came back were class 2, buffered class 2s and a class 4 option. So very preliminary, but that's kind of what we have to present today. And then once we go through that, there's also a separate discussion about there's some sea level rise challenges here as well that I can touch on.
Yeah, so just the class 4 here is a little bit of a kind of curl around, get access to this location to get across the road. It would just be a class 2 continuation of Doherty Drive in the sidewalk here. So the class 4, as you know, is a bicycle facility in each direction. So those that are going to be on bicycles going eastbound would be on the northern side of Lucky Drive, which does pose its challenges to how do we access that safely for the users coming onto that. This intersection right here would be of a design, pretty detailed analysis to get that accomplished. And then on the other side, the same discussion. How's that cyclist then get ejected off of the class 4 facility onto the Lucky Drive continuation into Marin County? So that would need to be studied as part of this. It does remove the cyclist from this right-hand movement discussion. So if that cyclist does want to continue to Pfeiffer, then they're kind of going around the corner and coming back. So there's a lot to be really reviewed here, but something that we're going to be keeping BPAC apprised with as we kind of start the discussion of options here. And we will be seeking feedback on the preferred use and facilities to get implemented here. And then RJ, I think, was going to mention some considerations as he did with Paradise Drive regarding the sea level rise.
Yeah, so Paradise Drive, the section between Robin and Westward, as well as this portion of Lucky Drive, have been identified in our climate adaptation plan as near-term strategies. This last December, there was about 2 feet of standing water here in front of our town courtyard, kind of mid-span here on Lucky Drive. As we all know, this is a heavily used route to many parts of Central Marin. And so, and it serves not just Corte Madera, but the region. Staff recently submitted what we call a notice of intent for a FEMA grant. We submitted for about $2.5 million to fund sea level rise improvements and multimodal improvements. This is kind of a preliminary application, and then they have since come back and said, you know what, this is at least qualifies for the program. Please submit a full package. So we'll be preparing a full package for grant funds that's due sometime around mid-December. So if we, get lucky and we get those funds, then this could be, a real life project that gets moved forward quickly. But in the meantime, we think just kind of scoping it and having the discussions to really allow us to move quickly should we get those grant funds and opportunities.
Okay.
And that's all we have. Thank you.
Thank you. So first off, any questions from BPAC members on this? Okay, I don't see any questions. Then let me check the public, which I don't see any hands raised for the public right now either. Oh, wait, here we go.
Yeah, Bjorn.
Looks like Bjorn.
There we go. Hey again, I just wanted to, this looks great. I'm glad you're considering both the buffered bike lanes and the two-way class 4. I just wanted to mention that, if there are serious operational challenges with having the two-way class 4 on the north side of the street there, especially at either end, the class 2 buffered bike lane could easily be made a protected bike lane in each direction, just by adding some sort of physical barrier between the travel lane and the car lane out in the space that you would be using for the buffer. And that might solve some of the headaches and still achieve that goal of protecting people on bikes from cars. But thanks.
Okay, thank you, Bjorn. And Cindy Winter.
This is a very tricky little segment of territory to plan. And so what I've done is I've made a screenshot of it, and I'm going to think about it later. So that's all I'm going to say. I know you've been working really hard on it, and there's a lot that's promising, but it's just, how do you accommodate everybody who wants to go all sorts of directions? And the right turn that's in Larkspur, I'm sure you've spoken with Julian about that, but that is a scary turn for cyclists right now. And I guess the cycle track will be on street, but there will be a line, a buffer line of some sort. It's something about the curvature of the curve, that cars go around that really fast. So if there's something you can do, or if there's something Larkspur can do to make that intersection where all that infrastructure is as simple as possible and as safe as possible and as slow as possible, that would help. That's all I'm going to say. I've said enough. I'll think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Okay, looks like Jean Severinghouse.
Yeah, hi. Just wanted to say kudos for getting that FEMA potential grant to deal with this area, including multimodal. That's fantastic. And also kudos that in both plans, you've really acknowledged what the community's been asking for, which is the difficulty of getting across Pfeiffer and the difficulty of getting across Doherty, going both directions, north, south, east, west. I'm not sure which it is there. It's kind of a diagonal. But that is the trouble, is the intersection. So it's wonderful to see that being absolutely included in the planning. So thank you.
Thank you, Jean. And it looks like David Bell has his hand up too. David?
Yes, thank you. Just want to state this projects are endorsed, but continued coordination with the Flood Protection Board, because these projects will affect multiple entities. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. I will bring it back to the BPAC for comments on this. Is there any member of the BPAC who wants to comment on this item?
Quickly, just this is a really important project because people coming southbound, say from Bon Air, they cross Corte Madera Creek, and they many times don't want to go down Tamil Vista. I think even with the new bike lanes there, some people still avoid it, and they want to go along the High Canal Path. And this is a important segment for that. So I'm really happy you're looking at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Any other BPAC members? Then I will just add to Cheryl, thank you for taking this on. This is really a difficult stretch because those two intersections are tough and it's going to be hard to figure out how to make it safe for bikers. But I have complete confidence if anybody can do it, RJ and Jared can. And David, RJ is our flood guy too, so I'm sure that's being taken into account. Okay, thank you. And let's move on then to the next agenda item, which is 6D, Sidewalk Program Update. I think we are back to Jared and RJ.
Yeah, so we're taking a sidewalk pilot program to council next Tuesday, and we weren't planning to do a full refresh of items we've already discussed, but we did want to summarize some of the key strategies, as we're calling them, and also touch on kind of one more significant change to what we're going to be presenting. So I think last time we discussed a possible $250,000 annual pilot program. That is the case of what we're proposing on Tuesday. In the first year, meaning this current fiscal year, because by the time this gets up and running, almost half of that fiscal year will be gone. One of the strategies we're going to defer, and so the first year we'll be asking for about $150,000. But since our last meeting, we did sit down in depth with San Rafael and learned quite a bit about what they says is working and what is a very staff-intensive process, and we think we were able to come up with some improvements to that. Also, what we've we'll be presenting this to council moving forward. So next slide, please. So real quickly, on the top, there's the bulk of this program involves matching funds, and there's a couple categories. So one is, how much would the town potentially match for sidewalk improvements? The other is, what would they match on trees? And then also on curb and gutter. Those are kind of the three main items. And so we wanted to show just a kind of a San Rafael process and then how we defer. So we would mirror them on the 50-50. That's what we're proposing for the sidewalk. They are actually currently paying for 100% of tree removal and replacement. I suspect perhaps that's because they maybe didn't have a robust tree ordinance prior like we do. And so one modification is I'm proposing a 50-50 match on that tree component. The rest, as far as curb and gutter, we would mirror. That's kind of always been the agency responsibility, and that's pretty common, I would say, statewide. And so we would mirror those matching and threshold limits. Next slide, please. So I mentioned there's 4 strategies. And so one is what we're calling sidewalk grinding, or some call it shaving. And the idea is we've done some inspections of, we did one through Chapman Park, and we did one on some areas that were prioritized in our barrier removal and implementation plan done in 2013. And what it came back and said was there was significant areas that could be shaved down and or replaced. And so we think for a contribution of about $50,000 per year, we can make significant headway on those kind of more minor offsets. And when I say minor, we're talking sidewalk panels that are less than 1.5 inch offset, and it's much less expensive than removing it and pouring it back with concrete. Next slide. And so that effort would be a town-led and managed process. Strategy 2 is something that in a lot of ways we've been doing it. For instance, Channel Vista Complete Streets, there was some sidewalk, a good amount of sidewalk work done that was funded by the town. But we wanted to kind of clean up some of and clarify that role with respect to kind of the town ordinance, which puts that cost and maintenance responsibility on the fronting property owner. So this kind of sets aside money to fund those sidewalk improvements as part of our CIP projects. Next slide. So 3 and 4 are somewhat similar. The difference being one is an individual process as an individual property owner, and the other is more of a neighborhood or what we are calling zones. So if you were a property owner and you had deficient sidewalk in front of your house because a tree's uplifting it, and you were compelled to repair it, there would be a process where you'd submit an application and would receive some matching funds through a reimbursement. So you would still go through the permitting process, the application process. You would obtain quotes and hire your own contractor, but at the end, there would be a matching contribution. And so there's some funding set aside to propose to set aside for that. This is similar to what we've taken as an approach on the district side when we're dealing with private sewer laterals. So it's very similar in how we approach that. Next slide, number 4. So I know this one's a lot to read, and I'll try to summarize it as simply as I can. A lot of those same matching contributions carry through. So again, a 50% sidewalk match with a cap, curb and gutter where it's absolutely needed, funded by the town, and then separately a possible 50-50 tree matching component there, except for we would do it from a zone or neighborhood perspective. Jared, you want to go to the next slide and show a preview of the map, and then we can come back to the literature. So we've taken a preliminary look at, and this mirrors what City of San Mateo has done. So instead of it being kind of a free-for-all where applications can come from all sides of town and kind of there's less order, and also contractors are running, left, right, east, west, constantly to do the annual projects. We're kind of saying we're going to break the town up into 10 zones, and we're going to set a schedule where, there's some advance notice as to which zone we would come to each year. And then, over a 10-year period, or, obviously if there's funding issues, that could be accelerated or decelerated. But the idea is that there would be a sequence where over the life of the program, we would sequentially go through the 10 zones in town. And so we would send notices to say, Marina Village, this year, your zone is up for improvements. If you would like to apply, please do, and we're happy to coordinate. Jared, you can jump back. So a lot of the same matching, all of the same matching levels mirror the independent process. The difference is the benefit here is more competitive pricing because of the group bid dynamic. And then also the town staff would take a larger role in leading this effort and would actually facilitate it, obtain bids, oversee the work, and then enter into an agreement with individual property owners to later receive their matching portion back. So this is the major deviation from prior discussions that we want to share with you and see if you're supportive. And but that concludes the major changes to the sidewalk program.
Okay, thank you, RJ. Any questions from BPAC members on this?
I was a little bit confused where it says 50-50 split up to a maximum of $1,000, but then it also said that there, under grant amounts, the town will reimburse the property owners with a maximum contribution of $5,000. So can you clear up that confusion?
Yeah, I know it is a little confusing. Someone else did make that comment. It does, in my mind, make sense, but I do also recognize that at first glance it is confusing. This is the method that Standard Fell uses, and I would say the $5,000 is almost like an umbrella. So, you know, that's the max that one person could get. And to get that, you would have to really maximize multiple categories.
Oh, I see.
Right. So you could get there by the maxing out the sidewalk plus the curb and gutter. Or you could get there by maxing out the tree and the curb and gutter and the sidewalk. But if it's just sidewalk alone, you wouldn't ever be up against that secondary threshold.
Understood.
Any other questions? I just have one. Do you guys have any indication as to how far this budget will go? I mean, you said you're going to go to 10 different zones over 10 years. I mean, will it be enough per zone per year? Will it run out in a week? I mean, I guess you have no idea because you haven't really tried it yet, but have you done any sort of preliminary work on it that might give you an indication?
We just had a new intern start, and he had a conflict today and wasn't able to make it, but we'll be bringing him to introduce him. His name's Dimitri, and we have, he prepared the map and started doing a little bit of analysis looking at how many locations, for instance, in Mariner Cove, could we expect to apply for this program. And so and that's one of the larger zones that I would anticipate. Mm-hmm. And so his preliminary numbers show that the $100,000 is ample based on what we're seeing to fund that neighborhood. And as far as some of the other strategies, based on the inspection reports that we received from, we use Precision Concrete. That's kind of their specialty, and they focus on the grind outs or the shaving. We have already identified in excess of, I want to say, $400,000 in shaving, just by looking at Chapman Park and these priority roads. To give you an example, Chapman Park, along with at one point Council Crest and Meadow Ridge, were included in that paving project to shave down all of the sections in that area, which was something like 760 locations, was about $52,000. So it's, on one hand, it's a lot of money. On the other hand, 760 locations for $52,000 actually is pretty good.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think on the shaving, you know, we have enough to keep the program going for 10 years. And it'll be interesting to see if, you know, at the end of 10 years, if we're near the finish line or not. But it's pretty close, I would say.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from BPAC? No? Okay. Then we will open it up to the public. See if there's any hands raised. It looks like, who is this, David Bell?
Yes, thanks. I was primarily concerned about this meeting with bicycle, but this really interests me. RJ, so as you know, currently in Marina Village, they've been digging up the sewers and replacing our lower laterals. I guess my point is, please be clear and be upfront with residents of what they need to do. We've been told we need to upgrade our upper lateral sewer laterals. So now this looks like we need to do something else. I guess my point is, let's be very clear to our residents what they need to do.
Okay, thank you, David. Looks like Susie Beatty, your hand is up.
I have sort of a goofy question. So, so let's say Mariner Cove is scheduled to have one of these, have the program done over here next year or 2 years from now. And so I've got a spot in front of my sidewalk that is bad, but I know that this program is coming, and somebody falls and trips on my sidewalk, and I haven't had it done because I'm waiting for you. Is that a stupid thing to bring up? Or, you know, it's terrible over here in Mariner Cove, so as you well know. But it's a possibility that could happen.
Okay. Thank you, Susie. And we'll just go through all the public comment, and we'll have RJ handle everything at the end. It looks like William Kimball. Welcome to the meeting. You want to speak?
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
It's Bill Kimball from Mariner Cove, and like Susie, and I'm just wondering how you'll establish priority for the zones, and if there's anything, you know, like for example, if we're in Mariner Cove, if there's anything that we can do to get in one of the early zones and not one of the later zones after 8 or 10 years, and how you might have that work.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kimball. Let's see, I do not see any other hands up, just checking. Okay, then let's come back to RJ. You want to answer some of those questions?
Yeah, sure. So on the waiting, because the program's coming, I definitely wouldn't wait to improve or to make something safe, but that also doesn't, there's other measures that might be fine on an interim level. If you have kind of one of those you know, uneven sidewalk panels and it's offset, you know, there's some temporary asphalt you could put down to kind of ramp it up temporarily until that program comes around. Or if you could also apply for the individual project, right? If you need to. So yeah, it wouldn't be, in my view, an excuse to wait if something happened and say that, you know, I knew it was unsafe, but this program was coming 2 years. I would recommend doing one of those other two measures, at least make it safe so that you can wait for the group program or apply individually. And then secondly, on the priority of zones, so there is a provision that is being proposed to give priority to zones that are, the way it's phrased is, have a preliminary list of interested parties and are willing to volunteer and assist with coordination and public outreach. So if you're representing Mariner Cove and you have a couple neighborhood champions that are willing to do that, and you get with your neighbors and start building a list, then that through the program as proposed would move you up forward. Thank you.
Thank you, RJ. Okay, we'll bring it back to the BPAC then for any further comments or discussion. Is there any member of the BPAC who wishes to comment on this item?
RJ, did I understand that this is going to go before the town council on Tuesday?
That's correct.
Hey, I didn't know that.
Are these slides on the town's website for the public to access?
They're now they're in the agenda package that was sent out. I imagine today, if not worst case, first thing early tomorrow morning.
Okay.
So they'll be live definitely by end of day tomorrow. That can be accessed by the public.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't.
I
haven't seen it issued yet. It'll probably come out late tomorrow afternoon. That's usually when Rebecca issues it.
Sorry. By end of day tomorrow. And it's not this this language here. This text is I think verbatim from the resolution. So it should match.
It just strikes me that this is a project that we should also get on, next door, the town's reader board, whatever we can do to encourage as many people to be aware that it's being considered by the town council, because it affects, 75% of the homeowners in town.
Thank you, David. Any other BPAC member who wishes to comment on this item? Okay, not hearing any further comment, then pulling up my agenda. I think that takes us through all of our agenda items. So we will not have.
I think we have one more, Bob.
We have one more. Did I miss something?
Completed projects.
Oh, recently completed. I'm sorry, we're going back to 7B. Okay, thank you.
This will be
we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Don't want to glaze over that one.
Yeah, no, let's take our time on that, right?
Yeah, but I will be observant to everybody's time. So let's just touch real quickly on some recent completed projects around town, which most of these we've already talked about, so it should be quick. Tamil Vista Complete Streets, I'm sure you guys have all been well apprised as to the improvements and enhancements out there. So upper right hand corner, you can see one quick little snapshot there. I encourage you to go out and check out some of those the bike lanes and ped crossing facilities there. The 2020 Accessibility Improvement Project right in the middle of your screen on the left hand side, that one portion of that project was Madera Boulevard crossing enhancements, such as this RRFB that's shown, the flashing beacon there, and the Ped Refuge Island right there at Monona. So we're happy about the improvements along Madera, and as well as Redwood Drive and Pixley over there by Neil Cummins in the town park on the right hand side of your screen. So you can see some of the recently added center line dots, the RRFB in the background, the bulbed out curb ramps. Yeah, so this was a Safe Routes project, and it was awarded a $50,000 grant to assist with that construction. So you can kind of see in the right, if you squint, our little grant signage to make sure those funds are given to us. And then Redwood Highway Path, that one's an ongoing construction. We're getting close, and you can see in the bottom right some of the recent improvements out there. The dig outs from the tree roots that used to line this street here, the new pavement dig out, new curb and gutter, new trees are going to be going back in, and what you see over there is the underlayment, the sub for the new path that's coming in. And I think RJ might be able to touch a little bit more on the path and its completion estimated.
Yeah, so the latest schedule shows them paving actually next week. So although it won't be a completed project by end of next week, there could be users on the path as possibly late next week or the weekend. So definitely exciting to get that final course down, but obviously there'll be some significant landscape improvements that'll come in after, and some other minor items to complete, but definitely making good progress. So happy with it.
So yeah, that's our PED projects. There's other projects I'm sure you're aware, but that's our update for BPAC completed projects.
That's all you've been doing? Okay. All you finished. Okay, well then that does cover almost all the agenda items. Our final one is future agenda items. Do any of the members of the BPAC have items they'd like to see on the future agenda we should be considering?
Yes. So I'd like to have the Echo to San Clemente path grading suggestion by David Bell be placed on the agenda so that in the next 2 months, they can take a look at the feasibility, any ownership issues, cost issues, and the public can weigh in on that. Also, I thought Janet Furman's ideas about directing bicycle traffic up Chapman is worthy of coming back to the BPAC. I don't know what can be done. I know, often when I'm going to a part of town that I'm not familiar with, not here in Corte Madera, but someplace else, I'll use Google and I will use the feature that has a suggestion for bike paths. And it seems to me that, if this comes back for the BPAC agenda, maybe both signage and maybe getting Google to include Chapman as a good alternative might steer people away from Corte Madera Avenue. Then finally, the question about location of both 3-foot signs that was discussed tonight, and location of signage that says the bicycles may use the full lane. I'd like to see that come back so that in the next couple of months, members of the public and members of the BPAC can perhaps look at locations that are suggested, and then there can be both policy discussion about to what extent the 3-foot signs are appropriate, and we can keep moving it forward to find actual locations that would be optimal.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Bob, this is Mark. I'm wondering, has there been or will there be soon an evaluation of the improvements that we recommended on Tamalpais with respect to safety statistics? Has it safety improved, not improved? You know where I'm going on this. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, we'll see if we can look into that.
Thanks.
Anybody else? I had one that was actually on an agenda and somehow it dropped off this agenda. I don't know how that happened to RJ. Something with Rebecca, I'm sure, but I want us to consider a new meeting date and time. I'm the town's representative on the newly formed Marin Wildfire JPA, and we meet on the third Thursday of every month at 3 p.m. and we rarely go less than 3 hours. So I finished that meeting right before this meeting today. So I've been in meetings for a while, and I'd like us to try to find a date that might work a little better because I can't change that. There's 20 people on that board. So maybe we can do that via email, but maybe we can try.
No, Bob, I've
Yes.
got, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, I've got the official agenda in front of me, and it does have that item on it.
Oh, it does? Okay.
We can speak to that, yes.
Okay.
I printed the most recent copy as far as I could tell, so.
Okay. No, I was printing the copy I got late this afternoon, so, but it is on an earlier copy, but maybe we can, so I guess we can talk about it?
Yeah, we can talk about it.
Okay. I'd like, I know this, we've been meeting every other month on the third Thursday, but as I said, I've got a conflict now that I barely finished that meeting in time for this meeting, and we have gone more than 3 hours. So I need to figure out another date for my schedule. So How does the fourth week look for everybody? Like the fourth Thursday of the month?
Well, what's best for you, Bob?
Well, I think that would be a good one for me because most of my council meetings and other meetings are in the first, second, and third weeks. I'm on like half a dozen different committees that meet, for various things, police, fire, town. And the fourth week is fairly empty for some reason. So that's a time that I have it. Usually most months I have some time free. So, Cheryl.
The fourth week will probably work except for December, of course, because of Christmas and New Year's. And then in actually this year, the fourth Thursday is Thanksgiving. But that, that varies. So, and we won't be meeting Thursday. We won't be meeting in November anyway. So, if we started this schedule in January, because I don't think we can do it in December.
Okay. Is there any preference for Wednesday versus Thursday for anybody, or any day of the week?
Whatever you like. Whatever you like.
Okay. Let me work with Rebecca and RJ, and I'll see what we can figure out, and maybe we'll shoot an email out to everybody before the next meeting and see if we can figure out a date. But thank you for accommodating that. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a lot of Zooming to do in one day.
It's a long day. It's a very long day. The wildfire meetings, because we're just getting started, and as I said, it's a 20-person committee. It's a long and intense meeting, especially on Zoom. Okay.
Next time I'm going to reboot at 6.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Participation. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your participation. RJ and Jared, thanks for all your fantastic work. Really appreciate it. And I guess with that, we can adjourn.